Welcome to the final video for this course project. In this video, we're going to make some finishing touches to our tip calculator, and in particular, we're going to format our currency and also work with the split output. So first of all, we're going to create some functions which is going to round our currency values to 2 decimal places, along with putting a currency symbol in front too. Alongside this, where we have our split at the bottom, we're going to change this to output either 1 person or 2 people, 3 people, and so on. Also, this currency function can be used for the split values at the bottom too. So to do this, we're going to go down to our script, and if we take a look where we're outputting all of these values, instead of simply outputting a variable, we're going to pass this to a function. Let's create this function right at the very top. We'll begin with the function which is going to format our money. For this to work, we also need the actual currency value to work with, and we'll pass this to this function very soon. Now, there's a couple of things we want to do with this actual currency value. The first thing to do is to round this to 2 decimal places, and then we're going to add a currency symbol in front. So let's take our value, and we can reassign this to a new value. So the new value is going to be equal to the current value. And we can set this to 2 decimal places using the toFixed method. This new function then needs to return our new value. So before we go ahead and output this new value, we can also add to the start a string which is going to contain a currency symbol. Add a space, and then we can add this to the value. Since this is a function, we can now reuse this everywhere we need to output a currency value. So let's grab this, and if we scroll down, the first one is the tip value. So instead of outputting our value included in this variable, we can now call this function, passing in our tip value. So this tip value will be actually received inside of our function just above as this value, and then we can make our changes and return the new value. The total with tip, we can also grab these and replace this with our function. Next up, we have new bill each. Passes into our function, and finally the tip value for each person. Let's now save this and check this is working in the browser. Add a value. And now if we select different tip values and also split, we'll see that these are now rounded to 2 decimal places alongside outputting the currency symbol. The next thing I'm going to do is to create a new function which is going to format the split output. So this function will either output 1 person or it will output 2 people and so on. So back to our script section, let's create a new function. I'm going to call this format split. This is also going to take in a value which will be the number of people the bill is split between. Let's first check if this value is equal to 1. If it is, we then want to return a string which simply says 1 person. So we can return the value plus a string which is the word person. So this line of code will only run if the value of the split is equal to 1. And in fact, this just wants to be a string. And if the value is 2 or higher, we're then going to return a new value, which is the current value. And this time, rather than person, the value will be people. To now output this, we can use our format split function, passing in our split. Over to the browser, let's check this is working. So we can add a value and we'll see the output of 1 person. Let's change this to be number 2, 2 people, 3 people, and so on. This is now some nice improvements for our tip calculator. However, there is one edge case we need to take care of. And this is dependent on the particular values which we add. If we do something such as 47 and 15% tip, split between 2 people, it may not be immediately obvious, but there is one small problem here. And that problem is the bill each and also the tip each doesn't cover the totals just above the top. So the tip each is 352, which will give us the value of 704, and we want to make this 705. The same with the actual bill each. If each person put in 2702, this will be slightly short for the total. Now the way we can fix this is by going to our function which we created earlier, which is format money. At the moment when we're calling the toFix method, this is actually rounding either up or down depending on the number. To fix this problem, we always want to make sure that our value is rounded up and never rounded down. So there is some complex math calculations we can do to make this happen. However, there is also a much more simpler way too. So up at the very top, we're again going to grab our value and change this. We can make use of a math function called ceil, which will always round up our numbers. However, by default, math.ceil will round up to the closest whole number. So for example, 2702 would round up to be 28. This would then return to us some values which are way too high. Instead, we want to grab the second decimal place and instead round this up. To do this, we're going to multiply our original value by 100. So let's do some console logs and see how this looks in the browser. First of all, we'll console log the original value, so the first value, and then we'll do the same console log, but after this value has been changed. Let's open up the developer tools with right click and inspect. Go into the console. So if we take a look at these in pairs, particularly down at the bottom, 3.525 has been now rounded to 353. The same with 27.025, this has been rounded up. And now this has been rounded up, we can now divide this by 100 to give us the original decimal places. So let's take this value, divide it by 100 and then reload the browser. Let's add our values back in place. And now these values multiplied by 2 people will now be enough to cover the total bill and tip. So this is only a small detail, but something which could be really important when working with money. Let's remove these console logs and clean up our function. This is it now for our tip calculator project. I hope you've enjoyed it and also learned something new. You can now move on to the next project, take a break or add some further customizations to this project, either via CSS to change the look and feel, or you can add some different JavaScript functionality. I hope you've enjoyed this project and I'll see you in the next one.